to tell you a story about how I've used social media. I was at a job I hated, and I was at a friend's house. We were hanging out, and I was like, I just really need to get out of this job. So I wanted to work at Dropbox. They had a opening there, and for those unfamiliar, Dropbox is similar to Google Drive. And I took out an ad on Facebook for about $50, and I targeted anyone who had put Dropbox as their employer on Facebook. And then I loaded my resume and cover letter onto Dropbox so that when you clicked the Learn More button, you'd be taken directly there. And so the way that turned out was I got a call from their HR director saying, I've been given your resume by so many people, and I thought I just need to talk to you because everyone keeps forwarding me this resume. And I didn't know this when I took out the ad, but apparently also got a bonus if someone from Dropbox recommended you, and then you were hired, the person who recommended you got some money. So there was a financial incentive for people to pass along my resume. And because because it's life, I was interviewed and I didn't get the job, because sometimes that's what happens. But when you think about branding and what does that look like, it's really how you create connection with others while being creative. And so another example of a job I did actually get was I worked at a medical robotics company. I ran their Twitter account. So I was tweeting mostly about medical and healthcare stuff. And I had someone find me on Twitter who worked at eVisit and said, we really are in need of someone who can write about, to the layperson about medical information. And so I got a writing gig doing that. And so there are different ways in which you can use all of these platforms for more than just posting a pretty picture. Although I do think posting a pretty picture is a great thing to do anyway. So your brand is what you say, how you say it, where you say it, when you say it, what you wear when you say it. And that includes word, style, font, colors, right? Accessibility, what platform you're on, how inclusive you are. So this feels like a good example for UK. If I were giving a presentation at UK, I would not wear a bright red dress, because that would be really distracting for folks thinking, why is she wearing U of L colors at this presentation? And so that's an easy switch for me that doesn't really compromise who I am or what I stand for, but it allows me to hone my message for people to pay attention. And I think it's also to remember that you being who you are, that's your asset. So sometimes it can be really difficult when you're in this space and you're like, oh, but these people do it better, or I like that better, and I'm just not, like, they said to do this and I don't really feel like it. So you are the expert on you. And so you know what you like, you know what works, and that's really the place to start. When I started running the social media for the College of Pharmacy at UK, I picked one platform that I really enjoyed so that it wouldn't seem as such a heavy lift when I was working to create the college's brand on that one platform. And I was doing everything, but that one platform sort of got my main attention. And so if you're wondering, where do I start? I'd pick the platform that you like, so it will feel less daunting, but you have to start somewhere. And starting is really sort of looking at what is your story and what do you bring to the table. And the thing is, the reason I love branding is it's really just the story of you, and our brains are wired to really connect to stories. And so when you have a story that is emotionally compelling, when you have a story that's exciting, when you have something to say, that is all of your brand. So why are you doing what you're doing? How are you doing it? What do you offer? How can you help others? So we're going to go through those 4 things at the bottom: connect, celebrate, clean, and chill. Those are the 4 C's that we're working through today. So if you remember nothing else, that's it. So use your platform to connect. And again, whatever platform you're on. So form authentic connections through conversations with others. So that looks different on each platform, but the main concept is there. So if I'm thinking about Twitter, for instance, I would, and well, most, actually now most platforms, conference and industry hashtags work really well. So if you are opening a Twitter account, you're like, I don't have any followers, I don't know what to do. Starting where people are already having a conversation is a good place to be. So besthashtags.com is also a resource that you can use to look at what's popular, what's happening. So when I think about what UK has done, we had the Mask Up Cats account or hashtag, and you knew when you went to that hashtag that you could see photos of people in masks, and it would promote this whole wellness campaign. For pharmacy, TwitterRx is actually a really great resource, and there is usually there's usually a couple hashtags for each sort of space. And you want to use something that is common, that's workable, that is sort of within that space, but not sort of too broad. And so these are some of the hashtags that I've used. Besthashtags.com, again, is a great resource. And when you are using hashtags, to make them more accessible, the first letter of each word to show where the break is in the word. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on LinkedIn because there's a whole other presentation on LinkedIn. But again, that is another platform where it's a great space to be, and you can also sort of set that up and then let it be. Some people love it and network and do all sorts of things. I find that I'm really active on it when I'm looking for a job. And so if that's you, the set it and forget it can work for LinkedIn. And these are some resources that you can definitely use. And again, those are in the presentation that's in the chat. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about LinkedIn. All right, so when we talk about using our platform to connect, I like to start with the bio. So this is from Instagram with Intentions, which is a free training from Hillary Rushford. And 3 questions to ask are, what's in it for them? So, or three questions to answer. What's in it for them? Who are you? And where can we find you? And then offer free champagne. And what I mean by that is leave them with something extra. Leave them with a, another way to say it would be like a door prize or a goodie bag, but offer something that's a little bit sweeter that makes it worth the follow. So let's put that together. So if I were to have my own bio, this would work. Puerto Rican, dog mom to doodles, obsessed with words, writer and reader, visit the blog to learn more, and then I have my URL. This is okay, it's all accurate. It tells you a little bit about me, but it's also redundant. So obsessed with words, writer and reader, and I have a blog. And you can kind of figure all that out by just having that URL and people clicking on it and going to the blog. So a different way of kind of framing this would be this type of bio. So I believe in stories, cities, and whiskey neat. I have the Puerto Rican flag. I have the LGBTQ flag because I'm also a bi woman. Not having your ish together is totally in style. Kentucky via SF. Let's survive the mess together. And then an emoji with the link. And again, my personal brand is relatively irreverent. And so while I did not want to spell out a curse word in my bio, sort of that ish is a kind of an indicator that I'm less formal, I'm a little bit more laid back, and I also believe in connection. All right, let's look at some more. So this is on Twitter. So what's in it for you? You get words of the day, you get facts, observations, language, lookup trends, wordplay, all of that. Who is it? The dictionary. where are they? Springfield, Massachusetts, as well as their URL. And then the free champagne is basically their content. So they give you all of these free things that you get to interact with. And I would argue that that is sort of what makes that extra special. Again, another example. So it's a V&K. What's in it for you? If you look at the tweets that she has, it's all about business empowerment and entrepreneurship. Who is she? You can find all of that there. Where she is. She uses her airport code. So she's, I believe, in Toronto. I think that's right. I think that's the airport code. As well as a link to sort of her website and all the other things. And then her free champagne is these really great inspirational videos that she puts out for business owners. And she was also doing an initiative to get people to follow her on YouTube, as you can see. So you can play around, right, with your username as well as your handle to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So she does a ton of videos, especially on Instagram, and was moving to also utilizing YouTube. And so if anyone was on Twitter, she wanted them to give her a follow on YouTube. All right, let's look at someone who's actually from here. So this is Catherine. She lives in Kentucky. And again, she utilizes the emojis to sort of separate everything. So what's in it for you? You can elevate your business with luxury branding. That's what she does. Who is she? She does brand design. And so you can see that up in kind of where the username is. Where is she? You can find her on her website. And then the free champagne you can see on her Instagram stories. She has a whole highlight. It's just free stuff. And this is not a requirement. This is just best practices that can work for people. But if you don't have something free to give, you don't have to just make something up. It should be something of value and something that can increase that connection that people who are looking for you may want to use. So I have a newsletter. I also have like a short sort of compilation of essays that are free. And depending on what platform I'm on, I may use different links for those free things. But again, if your content is connecting, if you are kind of accomplishing everything, don't stress if there's no free champagne. Jenny J, so she is a photographer. Again, so sharing powerful stories through words and visuals, activist, ethical storytelling coach, and educator. She has pronouns, where she is. She has a Thoughtful Thursday newsletter. If you're looking for someone to follow, I also highly recommend Just Ask Jenny. And so you can also see how, right, their username and their handle, which is up in the right-hand corner, Just Ask Jenny, are different. And people utilize that. So Jenny J photo and video is the username that that comes up. And so when people are searching on Instagram, which is where this is from, and they're searching photo and video, she's more likely to come up in those searches. Which is why for UK College of Pharmacy, I have UKCOP, because that is the abbreviation for the college. And so most of our students are not going to spell out UK College of Pharmacy, they're going to put in the abbreviation. And so this helps people find us faster. So this is the bio for the college, University of Kentucky. I put that because UK is so often mistaken for the UK. And we were getting a lot of messages from people not in the United States asking us about the pharmacy process across the pond. So University of Kentucky, a top 10 college pharmacy, live in the PharmD PhD life, a few emojis. And then we offered free tips from our students on joining our program. So also you can tell this is a little bit more informal. So live in the PharmD PhD life. And that's how our account kind of works. It's I think of Instagram as more of like a lifestyle magazine. So it's and it's where our students really connect with us. And so it's important to figure out who is where And how can I talk to them? So who am I talking to? Who's my audience? And how do I adapt this for them? And then the long bio. So you already read this. So this is what that bio looks like. And I recommend taking the time to put something together like this, because this is what you can use and pull from for all of the other things. I also want to point out that nowhere do I list that I have a degree. And I don't list the school I went to, and I don't list my training. I list what I've already done. So if you want to know that, I went to Seattle Pacific University. I majored in English with a focus in creative writing. But that's not like as important to give me credentials as the stuff that I've actually accomplished. And so if you feel like I don't have the right credentials, or people are more educated than I am, use what you've already done and throw that in your bio. And it's also more interesting than reading about where everybody is from. That definitely has a place, needs to be on your resume. But when you're putting together these bios, this should be a reflection of you. And why do we care? Because 3 billion people are on social media, and 85% of orgs recruit using social media. 70% of hiring managers say they successfully hired with social media, and 91% of employers are using social media to hire talent today. So if you're not on a platform, or you're not utilizing a platform, and again, any of these platforms that we listed at the beginning, it is a place that you can tap into. And I do want to acknowledge that this might feel really weird for some people more than others, because when you are trying to figure out your brand and figure out how to talk about yourself and what you stand for, there's a lot of us that do code switching. So an easy example would be, so my grandparents are from Puerto Rico. And so my grandma will switch back and forth between English and Spanish really easily. And you know, she's comfortable doing that. But a lot of times, code switching can be really uncomfortable and draining. So you're trying to figure out like what fits in this space, what's appropriate, what's professional. We see this a lot with hair. If we think about the Crown Act, if we think about women who lower their voices so that they can fit in with more male-dominated spaces, if we think about the clothing that people are kind of navigating through. And so if branding feels like you're sort of walking this line of like I'm this person, but I'm also this person, I just want to acknowledge that that is normal, and that's a struggle that I don't know ever really goes away. But I like to acknowledge it because it means that you're thinking about the things that are going to influence your brand. And so sometimes I describe this as when I do different activities, I wear different things because that activity requires it. So what I wear to a wedding is going to be different than what I wear to the gym. And so sometimes code switching is as easy as that. Many of us are very good at it. And it doesn't feel inauthentic, but sometimes it does. It feels really kind of icky, and we feel like we're not really able to, or we're not our authentic selves. And so the closer your brand is to who you really are, the more effective it's going to be. All right, we spoke about this a little bit before, but you want to connect by knowing your audience. So you can adjust your branding based on your audience, topic, venue. So if you notice, the slides have a particular sort of look so far. If I were giving this to a group of students at UK, my slides would be blue and white, and I would lean heavy on UK branding because that's my audience. So this would be an example of that. It's also a little bit more fun because the audience is a little bit younger, and generally this talk is a little bit more informal. So this is the second C. So we did connect. So now celebrate. So you want to promote your projects, your accomplishments, your victories, and how you do that. Start with facts. So things that are true and accurate about yourself. And then another place to start is also lessons that you've learned. So if you think about any of the platforms that we have, so if I think about Twitter, you could do a Twitter thread. If I think about Instagram, you can have a carousel, so more than one photo. You can use that to kind of go through what you've learned, just have a pretty photo, but then have the caption kind of be like, this is the space I'm in right now. I'm curious about this. Are you curious about this too? And that will also help you find your people. Collaborations, so how you've worked with others, and also celebrating other people. That I feel like is a really great place to start if you feel uncomfortable about talking about how awesome you are, because obviously you're awesome. But sometimes that can feel really like, well, uncomfortable. And we want people to like us, but we also don't want to feel like we're being pushy or that we're tooting our own horn. And so when you talk about things that you've done with other people, that can sort of help with that anxiety in terms of like, am I talking about myself too much? But if you talk about how you've collaborated with other people and how you all are doing this thing, sometimes that sits a little bit better. And it's also true and authentic to who you are. And then again, questions. So things that you might be curious about, and you can find other people who are also curious about those things. All right, and clean up. So if you're curious about your brand, I would suggest that you Google it. And I would also highly suggest using Google Alerts. So if I think about what we use at the College of Pharmacy, I have a Google alert for the UK College of Pharmacy, as well as our dean, our top level executives, Kentucky Pharmacy, and that helps me catch what alumni are doing, anything that is coming out in the press that has any one of our top leaders in it. And you can select how often you want to get these alerts, if you want to digest at the end of the day. But as someone who's in control of the brand of the UK College of Pharmacy, I want to know if someone has called my dean out in public, and I don't want to find out 48 hours after it happened. And so you can do this with your own name. If you have a really common name, you can also add your state or city, or if you work at UK, you can add UKY. You can play around with these different searches, and they can all come at once in a digest. But this is all free, and it's a great way to look at the health of what you are putting out there. I also will say, while we're talking about Google, when you're thinking about social platforms and joining social platforms, they really help your Google search. So if I Google myself, generally my Twitter account is the top search. And it is that way for a lot of people who are on Twitter. But your social media accounts tend to help with your search engine optimization, or SEO. And so so it's a really great way for people to find you if you're trying to set up a brand or set up a company, and you want folks to know who you are, or if people are Googling who you are, it's a great place for people to find you. And then delete content that no longer represents you. So I am a huge proponent of the fact that we evolve and that we can grow and change, and that our ideas can grow and change. And so sometimes when we have older content up, it no longer reflects who we are. If you're going into an interview, that can sometimes be really uncomfortable and problematic. And you don't have to delete everything, but you should be prepared to talk to it if you are brought into an interview. But the thing is, you may not get the interview also if you still have some of that stuff on there. So I like programs like Tweet Delete, where you can set up that it deletes every year or every 6 months. There are, if you just Google automatic sort of deletion for Twitter or any of these accounts, you can set that up really quickly. And again, this is another free service, but it helps make sure that you are, that your brand is really a reflection of who you are at this moment in time. And then chill. So when I think about the brands that I love or the people that I love following on social media, I like it because I really feel like I know them and they're not pulling out the things that make them them. So if you like books or movies, podcasts, working out, cooking, crafting, you have a family, pets, all of that stuff can be incorporated. It's good to have boundaries. It's good to figure out exactly where your lines are. If you don't want to have your family at all involved, then get clear on that. But there are things that make you who you are and that make you unique and that add to your brand as opposed to detracting from it. And I would also consider avoiding profanity for shock value. So I tend to, I do curse because we are in a presentation that has the potential of being heard by young ears. I have not done it in this presentation. And I don't generally do it just to shock people. I do it because that is usually how I talk. But if you're on social media and it can be really jarring for folks. And so I am not against using profanity, but I think sometimes using it just to be argumentative can be a detriment. Same with creating conflict for fun. I don't shy away from conflict, but just creating it to create it isn't really going to help anyone. And then also calling out in public as the first step, as opposed to doing it in private. So I do think there is a space in social media to call out folks and to hold people accountable and to speak truth to power. But I tend to think of that as a step that's after have I tried talking to this person. So if I think about if I had an issue with something that our college did, if I go straight to social media, I somewhat back the powers that be into a corner because they have to reply publicly and they may not be able to have other creative options. And again, there might be a place for that. But usually it's at least step number 2. So I'll leave it at that. I do think it's important to figure out exactly what you want to stand for. And so if there are things that are really, really important to you and there's just not a compromise on those, I think I think that it's important that you're able to stand by that. But usually that's a short list. And so what are areas where you can have different conversations that may not be in the public space? And then again, avoiding passive aggressive attacks. So subtweeting, vague booking, shade gramming. Those are basically all the passive aggressive ways to do it on the different platforms. And so this is the summary. So if you take nothing away from this, again, you want to use your platform to connect, to celebrate your work and the work of others, and you want to use storytelling to your advantage. You want to clean it up as best you can, and then chill. So don't be afraid to show what makes you unique. Get clear on what is important to you, and avoid putting conflict out there that can be managed more effectively in person.